What does it mean to live a life woven into the fabric of a small town, where every season, every neighbor, shapes who you are? As I sit here with you, my dear friends in the Addison knitting circle, the fire crackling and the scent of apple pie filling the air, I'm reminded of how our stories bind us. At 85, I've lived my entire life in Addison, Vermont, on a dairy farm that's been my home, my challenge, and my joy. Today, I want to share my story with you. Tales of childhood adventures, love, loss, and the lessons that have carried me through. What moments from your own lives come to mind as we begin? Let's explore together. What was it like to grow up in Addison, Vermont, in the 1940s? I was born on April 5, 1940, during the spring lambing season, on our family's Mapleview Dairy. The farm, nestled in the Champlain Valley, had been in our family since my great-grandfather immigrated from Ireland in the 1880s. With about 30 cows, Holsteins and Jerseys, grazing in fields framed by the Green Mountains, it was a place of hard work and simple beauty. Can you picture the golden fields under a summer sun? Or the quiet of a winter morning, broken only by the soft clanging of cowbells? My parents, George and Evelyn, were the heart of the farm. Dad, with his calloused hands and quiet wisdom, knew each cow by name, Best Daisy Clover. He'd talk to them like old friends, saying, "Come on, Daisy, let's get you milked." Mom kept the books, her sharp mind ensuring we stayed afloat, while making sure me and my older brothers, Tom and Robert, pulled our weight. How does a child learn the value of hard work? For me, it was carrying buckets of feed at 7, my small hands aching but proud, or cleaning stalls before dawn, the barn's warmth and smell of hay and manure wrapping me in comfort. School was a one-room schoolhouse a mile down a dirt road. We'd walk, boots crunching on frost in winter, or kicking up dust in summer. Miss Clara, our teacher for all 8 grades, saw my love for stories. "Write what you know, Margaret," she'd say, handing me a notebook. I filled it with tales of talking cows and forest adventures, my imagination running wild. What role does a teacher play in shaping a young mind? For me, Miss Clara was a spark, making me believe I could capture the world in words. The war years changed everything. Dad was too old to serve, but neighbors' sons went off to fight. We collected scrap metal, grew victory gardens, and knitted socks for the troops. I remember sitting with Mom and the women's group, needles clicking, as we talked about the boys overseas. How does a community come together in times of crisis? It was our way of contributing, of feeling connected. In November 1947, a flood hit Vermont, one of the worst in history. Vermont Historical Society. Over 9 inches of rain fell in 2 days, flooding rivers and fields. Our farm escaped the worst, but neighbors lost homes and crops. Addison rallied. Families shared food, helped rebuild barns, and offered shelter. I was 7, helping Mom bake bread for displaced families. That spirit of unity stayed with me. Can you recall a time when your community came together like that? Summers meant the Addison County Fair and Field Days, where the town buzzed with tractor pulls and the sweet tang of maple cotton candy. At 12, I entered my apple pie, flaky crust, tart apples, a pinch of cinnamon, and won a blue ribbon. Mom hugged me tight, her eyes shining. How do small victories shape a child's confidence? That moment taught me that hard work could create something beautiful. Winters were harsh but magical. In 1947, a blizzard buried Addison in snow. Dad needed help saving a newborn calf stranded in the barn. Bundled in my coat, I trudged through knee-deep drifts, holding a lantern as he wrapped the shivering calf in blankets. Back inside, warmed by Mom's hot cocoa, Dad said, "You're tougher than you look, Maggie." How do such moments shape a child's sense of self? I felt needed, part of something bigger. One summer evening, we had a family picnic by Lake Champlain. The sun set, casting a golden glow over the water, crickets chirping, cows mooing in the distance. We spread a blanket, unpacked sandwiches and lemonade, and laughed together. Another memory is helping Dad deliver a breech calf at 10. It was a tense moment, but he guided me, showing me how to position the calf. When it emerged slick and wet, I felt a surge of pride. "You did good, Maggie," Dad said. From that day, I knew I was capable of more than I thought. As the 1940s ended, I began to dream of the future. High school loomed, bringing new opportunities. But for now, I was a farm girl, rooted in the green mountains, the smell of hay, and the rhythm of farm life. What places have shaped your own heart? How do you know when you've met the one? In 1956, at 16, I was a junior at Middlebury High when I attended a school dance. The gymnasium glowed with paper lanterns and Elvis Presley's Hound Dog blared. John Carter, from a neighboring dairy farm, asked me to dance, his shy smile making my heart skip. Can you recall that flutter of first love? We swayed, talking about our farms, our dreams, and the way Lake Champlain sparkled at sunset. He was tall, with dark hair and kind eyes, and I felt like I'd known him forever. Our courtship unfolded like a Vermont summer, warm, slow, and full of promise. We'd picnic by Lake Champlain, sharing sandwiches and dreams, or drive to Burlington for movies at the Flynn Theater, a local treasure since 1930, Vermont Historical Society. John loved history, reading about Vermont's days as an independent republic. Did you know we were our own country once? He'd say, eyes bright. I shared my stories and he'd laugh, saying, Maggie, you could write a book. How does laughter strengthen a bond? In 1959, under an oak tree overlooking his family's pastures, John proposed. I want to build a life with you, he said, slipping a simple silver ring on my finger. My heart raced as I said yes. We married in 1960 in Addison's white-steepled church. My dress, sewn by Mom, was lace with a long veil, and John looked dashing in his borrowed suit. The reception was a potluck, neighbors bringing casseroles and klenovnik, a Slovenian pastry from John's family, filled with walnuts and honey. How does a wedding reflect a community's love? That day, with music and laughter echoing through the barn, I felt Addison's embrace. We moved to John's family farm, a sprawling place with 60 cows and a red barn that glowed in the sunset. I learned to make cheese, my hands growing steady as I stirred curds, while John upgraded to a milking machine. Those early years were hard but joyful, filled with dreams of a family. The 1960s brought change to Vermont. The civil rights movement, Vietnam War, and counterculture revolution stirred the nation. Young people, disillusioned with city life, moved to rural areas, starting communes. Vermont History Explorer. At first, there was tension. Our traditional ways clashed with their new ideas. But we found common ground. Some worked on our farm during haying season, bringing fresh energy. Our children grew up in this changing world. David, born in 1962, was curious, attending peace rallies in Burlington by his teens, his sign reading, "Make love, not war." Susan, born in 1964, was artistic, inspired by the women's liberation movement to dream beyond the farm. Mark, born in 1966, was practical like John, learning organic farming from new neighbors. How do children reflect the times they grow up in? Through it all, John and I held on to our roots, our love for the land, and our commitment to each other. What does it take to raise a family through turbulent times? The 1970s were a time of growth for us. Our children were thriving, David adventurous, Susan artistic, Mark hardworking. We expanded our herd, invested in new equipment, and built a new milking parlor with a loan. Life was good, but a storm was brewing. By 1982, the farm crisis hit Vermont hard, 1980s farm crisis. Milk prices plummeted, sometimes less than production costs. Our loan debt weighed heavily, and we feared losing the farm. John and I sat at the kitchen table, coffee cold, bills spread out. We might have to sell, John said, his voice breaking. How do you face losing your legacy? I couldn't imagine it. I recalled a University of Vermont workshop on artisanal cheese, UVM extension. What if we make cheese? I asked. John was skeptical. We're dairy farmers, not cheesemakers. But I persisted. We started in our basement, experimenting with recipes. Early batches were disasters, too salty, too runny, but we learned. By 1983, we created Addison Gold Cheddar, smooth and tangy. It won first prize at the state fair, and orders came from Burlington to Boston. Can you imagine the relief? Our children stepped up. David, in his 20s, worked at a co-op for extra money. Susan designed labels for our cheese, turning it into a brand. Mark, in high school, helped with milking and chores. The community was our lifeline. Neighbors brought meals, shared equipment, and offered advice. We held meetings with other farmers, advocating for better policies. How does a community's support change a crisis? It brought us closer together. As the 1980s ended, the crisis eased, but the scars remained. We learned resilience, adaptability, and the power of community. Our farm survived, and we were determined to make it thrive. What do you do when life demands more than you thought you could give? On October 15, 1994, John had a heart attack. I drove him to Middlebury Hospital, my hands shaking, praying he'd be okay. The surgery was successful, but recovery was long. How do you face the possibility of losing your partner? For 6 months, I ran the farm. I learned the milking machine, balanced the books, and fixed fences. David, now a veterinarian, took leave to help. Susan organized meals, Mark handled repairs. Neighbors pitched in, milking cows, delivering feed. What does it mean to discover your own strength? I found I was capable of more than I'd imagined. When John recovered, we decided to slow down. We began transitioning the farm to Mark, who loved the land. It was bittersweet to let go, but it felt right. We moved to a smaller house on the property, with a porch overlooking the barn, where we could see the cows grazing. The 1990s brought changes to Vermont. Environmental awareness grew, with recycling programs and debates over Act 60, a property tax reform, Vermont History Explorer. We joined local initiatives, planting trees and supporting sustainable farming. How do you balance tradition with progress? What does retirement mean when your life's been tied to the land? By 2000, Mark was running the farm, and John and I settled into our new home. I started a garden, tomatoes, zucchini, dahlias blooming like fireworks. John took up woodworking, crafting gifts for our children and grandchildren. How does nurturing plants or creating with your hands mirror nurturing a family? I joined the Addison Knitting Circle, where we stitch blankets for charity and share stories. Betty, 92, tells tales of teaching. Linda, widowed, finds solace in our laughter. What does it mean to have friends who know your heart? They're my second family. My grandchildren, David's boys Alex and Ben, Susan's daughter Emma, and Mark's 3 Lily, Jack, and Sophie are my joy. I teach them to churn butter, tap maples, and listen to stories about the farm's history. Last year, Lily won a ribbon for her goat at the fair, echoing my own childhood victories. How does it feel to see traditions continue? The 2000s brought the internet, connecting us to the world. Our grandchildren taught us to use computers, though I prefer pen and paper. Vermont grew more diverse, with new residents from Canada, Nepal, and beyond. Vermont Wikipedia. We learned about their cultures, enriching our community. In 2010, we celebrated our 50th anniversary, surrounded by family and friends. It was a testament to our love and commitment. Now at 85, I reflect on a life full of love, laughter, and tears. What legacy do you hope to leave? What have I learned in 85 years? That life is like a Vermont winter, sometimes harsh, but always beautiful if you look for it. I've lost my parents, brothers, and friends, and each loss taught me to cherish the time we have. John and I, married 65 years, have weathered storms together. Our love stronger for it. Family is the root that holds you steady. Community is the warmth that sees you through. I've learned to find joy in small things. The smell of fresh hay, my grandchildren's laughter, the feel of yarn in my hands. What lessons have shaped your life? My stories are part of Addison's Oral History Project, preserving them for the future, Vermont Historical Society. I hope they remind people that a life well lived is about love, resilience, and connection. As I sit here with you, my friends, I'm grateful for every moment. What stories will you share next? How will they weave us closer together? Let's raise our teacups to life, love, and friendship. Cheers.